If you are looking for real horror, you are in the right place. Your support is not just a button. It is an energy that drives us to present to you what no one has dared to tell before. Subscribe now and be part of an unforgettable world, the world of horror. The wind was howling fiercely, carrying with it sounds like whispers of wandering spirits. On the edge of the city stood the hotel, dilapidated, with its old facade bearing witness to decades gone by. The place was deserted, covered in dust and cobwebs. The sky was heavy with dark clouds, and rain was pouring down heavily. Layla was driving through the winding roads when suddenly, the power went out and her car stopped. She looked around nervously, only to find herself in front of the hotel she had heard so many scary stories about. She looked up to read the worn-out sign, Malcolm Hotel. Despite all the warnings she had heard all her life, Layla decided to go inside. She desperately needed shelter, and the night was bitterly cold. With hesitant steps, she opened the heavy wooden door, which creaked ominously, as if it was a final warning. The moment she entered, she felt an unnatural chill fill the place, as if time itself had stopped within. She turned on her small flashlight, moving towards the dark reception area. The place was filled with old, worn-out furniture and faded paintings on the walls. Suddenly, she heard slow footsteps coming from the upper floor. A chill ran down her spine, but her curiosity outweighed her fear. She climbed the old stairs, which creaked under her feet. The hallway was dark, except for the scattered candles placed randomly. When she stopped in front of one of the rooms, she heard mysterious whispers and felt cold breaths on her neck. At that moment, she knew she had entered a dark world full of terrifying secrets, and going back was no longer an option. When she opened the door to the room, the scene before her was horrific. The room was splattered with blood on the walls and floor, as if it had witnessed a brutal massacre. In the middle of the room, there was an old broken bed, and on it lay a disfigured corpse. Layla couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman due to the decay and deep wounds. She slowly backed away, but before she could leave the room, she felt something grab her foot. She looked down to see a bloody hand extending from under the bed, gripping her ankle tightly. She screamed at the top of her lungs, trying to break free, but felt sharp nails digging into her skin. With all her strength, she pulled herself away and ran down the corridor, but blood was trailing behind her. As she ran, the lights started flickering strangely, and the horrifying sounds around her grew louder. She felt like she was being hunted, and the angry spirits had no intention of letting her leave alive. When she reached the ground floor, she saw an old picture hanging on the wall. It was a picture of the hotel in its early days, with a man smiling beside it. Beneath the picture was a name, Malcolm, hotel owner. Suddenly, she felt someone standing behind her. She turned slowly to see the ghost of the man in the picture, looking at her with vengeful eyes, his hands covered in blood. Layla backed away slowly, and Malcolm's ghost approached her with slow, frightening steps. His eyes were burning with hatred and vengeance. She tried to escape, but the hotel's main door suddenly slammed shut, trapping her inside. She felt as if she was in an inescapable trap. The terrifying sounds grew louder, as if the cursed souls were screaming in agony. Suddenly, the old doors burst open, and bloodthirsty ghosts emerged from them. Each ghost bore signs of deep wounds, torn and blood-stained clothing. They began to move toward Layla slowly, surrounding her from all sides. Layla felt an intense fear she had never felt before. She started screaming and crying, trying to find an exit. Suddenly, she felt something sharp cutting through her skin. She looked at her hand to see a bloody line running down her arm. The wounds were appearing suddenly on her body, as if the ghosts were mercilessly tearing her apart. In a moment of despair, Layla decided to run up to the top floor, looking for a place to hide. When she reached the upper floor, she found a large room with doors tightly shut. She felt that this was the only place that might be safe. She opened the door and quickly entered, closing it behind her. The room was dark and cold, and as soon as she closed the door, she heard a strange sound. She looked around to see the walls of the room breathing slowly, as if they were alive. She saw a small window in the wall. She decided to try escaping through it. With difficulty, she climbed up and opened the window as she tried to jump out. She felt a strong hand grab her hair and pull her back. She turned to find Malcolm's ghost standing behind her, smiling a terrifying smile. With screams filled with pain and horror, Layla tried to resist, but the power of the ghosts was greater than her own. Slowly, the room began to fill with blood, and its walls seemed to close in on her, as if they wanted to swallow her whole. Layla felt life draining from her as darkness engulfed her vision. In her last moments, she heard the whispers of the spirits telling her, "This is the fate of anyone who dares to enter the ghost hotel." And as her final breath left her body, Layla froze in place. Suddenly, the room ignited with flames, consuming everything in its path. The ghosts began to fade away with screams of pain and despair, and Malcolm lunged toward her with a face twisted in rage and madness. Layla fell lifeless, her eyes wide with horror, becoming a permanent part of the hotel. The hotel returned to its eerie silence. The wind carried the whispers of the spirits once again, but this time new whispers joined them. The whispers of Layla, who was now part of the cursed history of the hotel. The next morning, as a passerby walked by the hotel, they noticed the old sign had changed. It now bore a new name, Hotel of the Bloody Spirits. Since that day, the hotel became a symbol of horror and curses, and no one dared to approach it, for they knew that the end there was only the beginning of a new nightmare.